Hi, welcome to the studio at Wardley. My name is Stewart Hamblin. In this week's Feldenkrais lesson we're going to be learning how to improve the action of your flexor muscles. If you've not heard the term flexors before, then essentially Feldenkrais divided all your muscles into two groups. There are the flexor muscles on one hand and the extensor muscles on the other hand. The extensors are, as the name implies, the muscles that help you to backbend, for example. Flexors, on the other hand, are the muscles that help to fold you together. One important group of flexors are your abdominal muscles. It's important not just that the abdominals should have some strength to help support you, but that you should be able to use your flexor muscles generally to help with efficient movement. If you think, for example, of any activity of reaching, of rolling, some of the other Feldenkrais lessons that we teach, these rolling movements, all depend on the ability of your brain or your nervous system to coordinate the action of the flexors and the extensors together efficiently. Quite often what you see, or I see in the studio when I work with people, is for whatever reason the flexor muscles are often, or part of the flexor muscles I should say, are often working all the time and are often short all the time. So to give you an example of that, if I turn to the side so that you can see, often people are shortening their chest muscles, the flexor muscles in the upper part of the torso, and you can see how what effect that has on the shape of my spine. It increases the curve in the mid to upper part of the back, and it can also cause my shoulders to come forward and my head to be displaced forward, and then suddenly, as a result of all that, I'm having to work really the muscles of my neck to keep my eyes looking forward on the horizon. So this lesson is very much about exploring how to make your flexors work in a more efficient way. So let's begin. Now, normally I'd begin a Feldenkrais lesson by inviting you to lie down and scan the contact that you make into the floor. I won't do that for this recording, but if you'd like to take the time to do that yourself, then please feel free to do so. But otherwise, come to lie down on your back and have your knees bent up, just a comfortable distance apart. And then please interlace your hands behind the back of the head so that your hands are supporting the back of the head rather than the neck. And then with the assistance of your hands, begin to lift the head just one or two times to see how easy or otherwise that is. Is it a strain for you to lift the head in that way? And then pause, release the hands and bring the hands to rest on your tummy. And then once your hands are resting on the tummy, begin to bring your attention to your left shoulder and begin to do a movement of just lifting the shoulder away from the floor and then releasing it back towards the floor. So you're just bringing the shoulder forward and then releasing it back down. And just do this a number of times at your own rhythm, just lifting and lowering the shoulder. And as you're lifting the shoulder, notice what happens with the collarbone, that long thin bone here. Can you notice how the outer tip of the collarbone makes a little arc in space, doesn't it? It sort of comes forward in an arc and then releases back in an arc. Just noticing that. And then notice how you're breathing to do this. So if you're holding the breath, then what will happen is the ribs will stay quite stiff. And then you probably won't get the shoulder very far before it hits the wall of the ribs. Whereas if you can perhaps coordinate this on your out breath, so you're breathing out as you lift the shoulder and inhaling it as you bring it back. If you use the out breath, you can perhaps feel how some of the ribs begin to soften to help bring the shoulder forward. Good. And then also notice as the shoulder moves away from the floor, can you sense what happens to the rest of the back? As the shoulder comes away from the floor, what part of the back actually makes more contact into the floor? Where does the pressure shift to? Where does it move to in the back? So as I lift my left shoulder, I can feel my ribs softening and I can feel more weight going into the ribs on the right hand side of my chest. Now, just one or two more times. Check as you're doing this that the elbow is resting down on the floor if possible. So if you begin to lift the elbow, which is often the case, again it will mean you're using your arm muscles to bring the shoulder forward. See if you can allow the elbow to be quiet and resting into the floor, so you begin to differentiate the shoulder from the elbow. Okay. Now pause and then do the same with the right shoulder. So you're just thinking of bringing the shoulder away from the floor. To look at on the video, these movements are not so interesting, but hopefully you'll be doing it along with me to sense these things. So just bringing the shoulder away from the floor and then back towards the floor. And just notice which direction is more available to you. So if your shoulder is already a bit away from the floor, it will probably feel as though coming forward is easier rather than the backward movement. So just notice if that's true of yourself, so bringing it forward and backwards. And once you've got used to the movement, see if you can again notice what happens to the collarbone on this side. Does it move in the same way as the collarbone on the left side? And where does your weight shift to? So I can feel as I bring my right shoulder forward, the left, some of the ribs on the left hand side going a little bit down towards the floor. Again, I'm trying, it's a bit more difficult when you're speaking, but I'm trying to coordinate the lifting of the shoulder with my out breath. Good. Now pause and rest. And if you need to lengthen the legs to rest, please feel free to do so. And again, if you need to pause the recording, please do so. Okay, once you've rested, bring the legs back to standing. And then return to bringing your right shoulder forward and releasing it back down. But now this time, have the thought of as you're bringing the shoulder forward, you're aiming it towards the right hand side of the pelvis and then bringing it back down. So the intention is more on a diagonal movement towards the right hand side of the pelvis, and then let it release down. And each time you release the shoulder, let it fully release, so you give the muscles an opportunity to rest and lengthen. So you're bringing it forward on the exhalation and then releasing it on the inhalation. Now, I'm going to make this more complicated now. As you bring the left shoulder forward towards the right side of the pelvis, can you think of bringing the right side of the pelvis closer to the left shoulder? And then you release. So in other words, I can think of a piece of string attached to the shoulder and a piece of string attached to the opposite hip joint, the right hip joint. And it's as if I'm trying to bring those two pieces closer together. and then letting them come apart. So there's a diagonal I think of from the left shoulder to the right side of the pelvis and the right side of the pelvis to the left shoulder, a diagonal in front of me that are coming closer together of those 2 points. But then can you also notice how there's a diagonal of pressure being made into the floor behind you? In other words, for these 2 points to come closer together, some part of me presses down into the floor and then release. Now, once you've done that left shoulder to the right side of the pelvis, change the diagonal. So now it's the right shoulder towards the left side of the pelvis and vice versa. So you take a breath in. As you exhale or breathe out, think of bringing the left side of the pelvis and the right shoulder closer together, keeping the elbows nice and relaxed. And see if you can find this diagonal, the 2 points coming closer together. Now you need to take this slowly and pay attention, because sometimes what happens is, instead of show you in sitting, see if that helps to make it clearer. I'm thinking of bringing the for example, my left shoulder towards the right side of the pelvis closer together and release. So folding on a diagonal. What sometimes happens is people instead do a side bending action when they're lying down. So take your time just to notice how it is you're doing it. It will feel a strange movement. So don't be worried if it does feel strange. It may be a movement that you're not used to doing at all. Good. Now pause. And now think of, I use this analogy in class a lot. I hope you find it helpful. I often ask my students to imagine, as they're lying here, that they have a 2-year-old, an infant, sitting on their tummy. And the 2-year-old is going to jump up and then land down on the tummy. It's an experience I'm sure many of you have had if you're playing with children. So you think of a 2-year-old sitting here, and that 2-year-old is going to jump up and land down on your belly. How would you protect yourself, protect your back, to make sure you're not injured from that experience? And the clue I'll give you is, that I give my students, is to first of all take a good breath in. And as you breathe out, think of both shoulders coming forward in diagonals to the opposite side of the pelvis, and the opposite sides of the pelvis coming closer to the shoulders. So, in other words, you take a breath in. As you breathe out, you think of both shoulders coming forward and the hips coming towards the opposite sides, opposite shoulders, and then you release. So in other words, if you use the breath, you're beginning to engage your flexors, your abdominal muscles, and then you release. Another way of thinking this is almost as though the tummy area, this area here, is like a sponge, and you're wringing out the sponge. So you take a breath in and exhale. So your flexor muscles, tummy muscles begin to work. Your chest softens, everything. Good. Release. And if you do it again, the thing to notice how is when you engage your flexors, how your back is going into the floor. In other words, your back muscles lengthen, and I'm going into the floor. You see, the reason I say that is a lot of people think engaging your flexors, your abdominals, is about lifting away from the floor. But if you can think more of this as bringing yourself into the floor, it will help you with this folding movement. Now, just again, come back to the idea of the 2-year-old and just notice, can you keep the head resting down initially? Just the head resting down. Good. And then release. Good. Now, again, if you need to rest, please take a rest. But if you're able to continue, bring the legs back to standing. And now this time, I'm going to challenge this use, what you've just learned, to help with the lifting of the head. So interlace your hands and bring your hammock of hands behind the back of the head. And then point your elbows towards the ceiling. So if you keep the elbows flopped out to the side, it will add to the weight. So bring the elbows forward, take a breath in, and then as you breathe out, think of that 2-year-old sitting here. It's going to jump up and land, and you do exactly the same. You think of your shoulders coming forward, that cross, and the hips coming towards the opposite shoulders, and then release. Breathe in, bring the elbows in, and exhale to lift, and then release. I'm just going to move this hand out of the way so that you can see. So you take a breath in. Now when I lift my head with the assistance of my hand, this area is working like crazy. I'm not going to hold it too long, and I can feel my back pressing into the floor, and then I let it come back down. Now take a rest. I just want to explain something about the eyes. It's really important when you do these movements that you think about the eye movements. You see, if I lift my head and I stay looking here, what tends to happen, can you see, is my neck shortens and the head is really, really heavy. Whereas if I can think of using my eye muscles to help me, my vision, if I begin to look first of all down at my chest, can you see how it helps to lengthen the back of my neck? And then I can peel a little bit of my spine away from the mat, and then I peel back down. So by using the eye muscles as you come up and stay looking at your chest as you come back down, that can really help to engage the flexors of the head and the neck, to help with the assistance of, to help with this movement. What some people find it difficult, partly, and I'll just take a moment to explain this, is if you look at my, everybody has these muscles here. They're attached from the collarbone to your mastoid process. They're called your in English anyway, sternocleidomastoid muscles. They're these muscles here. And you can see that when I sit, if I turn to look to my right, can you see how this muscle engages? It helps to pull the head round. And if I turn to look to my left, the muscle on my right engages to help with the turning of the head. So in standing, these muscles help to turn the head. They're also muscles that help to, they're flexor muscles, normally considered flexor muscles. They help when both are working together to help fold the cervical spine and bring the chin closer towards the breastbone. But one thing that sometimes happens, and actually you see quite often with people, is if the chest drops, is these muscles begin to shorten, and instead of flexing the neck spine, they in fact shorten and hold the head in an extended position. So if you feel that kind of battle going on, it's really important that you think of how you're using the eye muscles to help you with these flexor movements. Because the eye muscle, how you use the eyes will have an important effect on the use of these sternocleidomastoid muscles. I probably pronounced that wrong, but you'll understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so that was quite a lot of talking. Take a moment to rest, and then just notice how you're resting into the floor, and then please bring the legs back to standing. And now we're going to explore some variations. So first variation is to bring your right hand behind the back of the head, and then bring your right leg in over the chest and take hold of the right leg with the palm of your hand. And now take a breath in, and as you breathe out, use your right hand to help lift the head and aim the elbow and the knee towards each other, and then release the head all the way back down. Let yourself rest fully in between each movement. So you take a breath in. As you breathe out, you see if you can bring the elbow and the knee closer together. Now, it doesn't matter at all, really can't stress this enough, if they don't touch. They don't touch. And it may be that you only get this far, and that's fine, that's fine. Don't strain at all costs to try and bring them to touch. The much more importantly is if you think of that work we were doing earlier on about the shoulders and the chest, the more you get the idea that this part of the trunk moves or is involved, then the easier it will be to bring the elbow and the knee closer together. So you take a breath in. As you breathe out, see if you can feel that, how the shoulder, the ribs are part of this, and then release back down. Now, pause, and then keep the right hand behind the head, and then bring the left knee in over the chest. And same movement again, take a breath in. As you breathe out, see if you can bring the knee and the elbow closer together, and then release. Again, it's not so important that they come together, it's much more important how they come together. So if you try and strain to bring them together, and nothing moves here, it just won't work. What you have to think again is, can you let this soften, and as that softens, the back goes down into the floor, and then you release. Now, to begin to make this more interesting, you can imagine there's a ladybird, an insect or something on your knee, and that insect or ladybird is moving around. So that each time you aim the elbow, you're trying to squash that ladybird or insect with the elbow. Each time you aim the elbow to a slightly different position. So in other words, you get the ribs and the chest. You ask them to do different things each time. Now, you can help this also by beginning to flex the foot, so that a whole chain of flexor muscles are working together to help you fold, and then take a rest. So I just want to stress again, this lesson works your abdominal muscles quite strongly. So if you need more rest or to do less repetitions, please take that time. If you find it easy, of course, you can do more repetitions. Now, please bring the legs back to standing. We've got to do the other side now. Have the left hand behind the head. Bring the left hand the left knee in over the chest. Take hold of the right hand. Take a breath in. Think of that ladybird moving around, and release. A couple of times, using the out breath each time to see if you can bring these 2 points closer together, checking that everything else is nice and soft, so the jaw, the eyes that you're using to help are soft. Good. Now pause, and then keep the left hand behind the head and change so the right leg is in. So we're now going on a diagonal. Take a breath in, exhale. Good. And if it helps you to think of that 2-year-old here, use that image. So again, the movement is not so much about the knee and the elbow, it's what's happening in the middle. Good. And then release. Good. Okay, so we've done a little circuit there, and take a rest. So let the legs go long. Good. And notice in resting how the back is making into contact with the floor. Do you perhaps feel a little bit more lengthened or spread out as hopefully your back muscles begin to release? Now, a few more variations. Bring the legs back to standing. Bring the right hand behind the back of the head and turn your head to look to your left. So turn to the left with the head, right hand behind the head, but it's kind of supporting my ear, my left ear, my right hand. Bring the right hand into the right knee and over the chest. Take a breath in. Now see if you can stay looking to the left as you bring the elbow and the knee towards each other. Good. Again, don't strain to do this, but see if you can give yourself time to use the breath. And just a few more. You don't have to do too many repetitions. You can integrate the foot, the flexion of the foot into the movement. And just checking again, jaw is nice and soft. Good. And then pause. And then we'll do that on, again, if you need to rest, please do so, but otherwise we'll do that on the other side. So turn the head to the right, left hand behind the head, have the left leg in over the chest, take a breath in as you exhale. Good. And release. And again. Good. Release. And once more. Good. And release. Good. And take a rest. Now, before we look at the other variations, again, I just want to explain something about these movements. Be careful that, if you can, to pay attention to how you're transferring weight in these movements. When I taught this lesson in class a couple of weeks ago, what I noticed was happening is, in trying to bring the knee and the elbow together, I'll show you from the other side, is this. In other words, when the person was asked to lift their head, what happened was, it wasn't just the head that was lifting, the whole part of the back lifted as a piece, and then it came back down as a piece, kind of like this. In other words, when the person was asked to lift their head, the flexors on this side were the ones doing all the work, but nothing was changing in this part of the back. So that when you begin the lifting of the head, notice how the weight comes away sequentially from the floor. And then as you come back down, you're trying to put yourself back down sequentially to return yourself. So again, it's more about using your flexors, so with two hands, to transfer. I'm thinking of transferring my weight, so from my head to this part of the back, to this part of the back, to this part of the back, to here, and then I come back, come back, come back, and come back. You see, if it's just a jerk response, then you'll just be using your habitual pattern of flexor engagement. Whereas if you can incorporate this idea that it's a slow transition of weight, then I'm sure that will help you a lot. Okay. Again, apologies for it being so wordy, but I think it probably helps if you understand the principles so much as how many variations we do. So, from here, please turn your head once more to look towards the left, with your right hand behind the head, and then bring your left knee in over the chest. Now, this time, begin to move your left knee towards you and towards the floor on the side. The other leg can just kind of do what it likes to. You're not doing anything specifically to it. So you're bringing the left knee to the floor on the left, and then as you do that, can you bring the elbow and the knee closer together, and then slowly return to your starting position. So again, as the knee comes to the side, and thinking of the elbow and the knee coming closer together, and then I return. And again, bearing in mind what I just said, thinking it's not about how far they come together, but I'm really, again, thinking of I'm slowly folding to transfer my weight, and then I come back. And once more, then I'm transferring, rather than thinking of lifting, and see if I can control the return. And pause, and then please do the other side. So you bring your right leg in, hold with the right hand, left hand behind the head, turn the head to look to the right, and begin to move the right knee to the floor on the right and towards you, and at the same time begin to bring the elbow and the knee closer together, and then see if you can slowly return. Hopefully, as you're looking to this part, you'll see what I mean about this transference of weight. So I'm thinking shift, transfer, weight, and then I come back. Just do one more. I quite like this movement, so do it again. I love these as you probably guess, I love these rolling movements, and in the next lesson we're going to be learning a very practical application of what we've been learning today in a rolling lesson. Again, if you need to rest, please do so. And then once you've rested, bring the legs back to standing. Now, this next variation is going to take our ability to fold even further. So again, if it's too difficult, you prefer to focus on what we've already done, that's fine. But if you are able to continue, I'll show you. So bring your left leg in towards you. Have the right hand on the shin, and if you can reach, take hold of the left foot with the left hand. Thumb and fingers together rather than a pinch. And you take a breath in, and as you breathe out, again, use the eyes to help you. Look down, see if you can bring your head and knee together, and then you release. So again, take a breath in. As you begin the movement, again, use the eyes to help. Look down to lengthen the neck, and then see if you can bring your forehead and the knee towards each other, and then keep looking down as you release back down. Good. Now, if that comes easily to you, you can change the hands for another variation so that the left hand is on the shin, the right hand is up around the foot, and again. Okay, all the time I'm using the breath as much as I can while talking to help with this movement. Good. And then pause and change. So bring the right leg in, have the left hand on the shin, right hand around cupping the sole of the foot, take a breath in. Now, this requires much deeper folding in the body, as I said. There are a few variations you can try, just to feel the difference, is try bringing your chin and your knee closer together. And you'll notice perhaps how that causes the back of the neck to shorten. Try bringing the tip of the nose and the knee together. And then try bringing the forehead and the knees closer together. Just notice the difference in terms of what it does to the neck, these variations. And then pause, rest. And then please bring your legs back to standing. And then this time bring both your legs in over the chest if you can, and wrap your left forearm behind the backs of the thighs. Bring your left hand behind the back of the head. Take a breath in, and as you breathe out in, use the eyes to help you to look at your tummy, to think of bringing for me I'm thinking the forehead and the knees coming closer together. And then I release. Again, you take a breath in as you breathe out. Good. Release. Now you can make this more interesting, perhaps by thinking of the elbow going first towards the left knee, looking down, and then towards the right knee, and looking down, and then between the knees. What this variation does is it really begins to engage the middle part of your flexor, so that the mid-back releases down into the floor. To gain a slightly more advanced or challenging variation is to incorporate some of the movement of the legs. So you take a breath in, as you breathe out and lift the heels towards the ceiling, and then release back down. So again, you're using the out breath. I'm looking down at my tummy. This really coming together like a sponge, so my mid-back is down, and release. And again. Good. And release. It's quite a nice movement, so I'm going to do one more. And release. And then you can switch so you have your left hand or forearm behind the backs of the legs, the right hand behind the head, and take a breath in to lift up and back down. So again, as you exhale, you extend the heels, lift the head, looking down and back, and good, and back down, good, and then rest. So once you have stretched out the legs again, just take a moment to notice the contact into your floor, and in particular how the back rests into the floor now. If you get a sense of length and width as a result of using of doing this lesson. And then please bend the knees, roll to the side, and come up to sit. So, just wanted to explain why I hope you have a feeling of length in lying down, and maybe also when you come to standing is Feldenkrais, apart from being a genius, he knew his anatomy. He very much had studied anatomy, and he took advantage in designing his lessons of quite a well-known phenomena called reciprocal inhibition. You may have heard of that term, but if you haven't, I'll just explain that if you think of the muscles of your arm or my arm, you have your bicep muscles here, which, like Popeye, they shorten as the arm bends. And these bicep muscles are flexor muscles too. They close the elbow joint. And your tricep muscles on the back of the arm are extensor muscles. They open out the elbow joint. Now, when I contract my bicep muscles, my nervous system, it tells the tricep muscles to lengthen. And when I contract my bicep muscles, the nervous system tells my bicep muscles to lengthen. In other words, if the nervous system is working in a coordinated fashion, there's this dialogue going on so that to help with movement, that as the biceps engage, the triceps release. As the triceps engage, the bicep releases. Now, this lesson has been very much about engaging your flexors in an integrated way, and the reason I said I hope you feel a sense of length is by engaging your flexors. It's very much been, your nervous system hopefully has been telling those back muscles, which often are working very hard and sometimes chronically over much, then your back muscles will have benefited from the engagement of the flexors and responded by lengthening. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. It was a lot of me talking. As I said, it's perhaps not the most interesting of Feldenkrais lessons in terms of the actual movement, but it's a really important lesson to understand, to be able to apply the learning in it to the more interesting and sophisticated movements that we'll be looking at in due course. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. If you did, please press the like button below. If you haven't already subscribed, then please hit the subscribe button.